So yesterday, out of the absolute blue, without any warning whatsoever, something happened. And what happened was all the original content of Halloween Horror Nights 26 was released in one big info drop. Mind blown. But let me go a little further into that. So my name is Sir Owen, and welcome to yet another video talking about Halloween Horror Nights 26, and now we're going to talk about the originals. And this is something I wait for every single year, because it is awesome to be able to be chased by Michael Myers, or to be in the same room with Regan when she's having her little vomit fits, but it's quite another thing to see the stellar content that Universal Art and Design create when they have nothing as a template, when they have nothing but their own imagination to go off of, and when they create some of the best original properties that I've ever seen personally. Now granted, I know I'm biased given the fact that I've only been to Halloween Horror Nights, and before this I really have no expectation for haunts because I never really have been through one. I told you the story about the Mysterious Mansion a while back in Gatlinburg. We don't need to go back there. So, and we're definitely not going back to Fairmont. So, when it all boils down to it, this is my only event I go to. So, obviously, this is the one that's near and dear to me. And every year, I wait for more original content. And I was not disappointed one iota this year. There was a lot of information that was dropped on us. And out of the blue, I'm just like, I'm surfing the internet, I'm on Twitter. All of a sudden, I see a notification. I was like, at Horror Nights ORL, what's this? And then it says, more scares, more screams, 3 houses and 3 scare zones revealed for hashtag HHN26. See it all at, and then it's a bit LY, and it leads us to a blog post. Now, this blog post is not written by Michael Aiello. This blog post is not written by Charles Gray. This blog post is actually written by at FL Thrillseeker Anthony Armenia. Yeah, a name that I know from Twitter, and somebody that is a big fan of Horror Nights, and also not only currently studying at UCF, but is an intern at Universal Orlando. So he was lucky enough to be able to deliver the news in his own unique way. So I have all that information below in the description bar if you want to check out the official blog post. It's basically everything I'm going to say in this video, but there's a little bit more to it, and the images that I'm going to be talking about, they are actually at the very bottom of the page as well, kind of to whet your appetite. I like that phrase. I'm going to start using it more often. So, we got revealed the 3 original houses, 5 original scare zones, and a brand new show for the event. But where are we going first? Actually, I want to start with the houses. First off, we'll get to the very end of the video, because in my Krampus video recently I had promised to talk about this, but yeah, I kind of forgot about it at the last minute, so that kind of got 86th. I'm sorry about that. It's just kind of what happened. And when it comes down to it, I really wanted to mention more about what I wanted to talk about here, but I couldn't because I kind of forgot. Yeah, I kind of forgot about it because there's so much going on right now. I kind of have a lot going on, especially with Horror Nights, and yesterday was the Wednesday Wrestling Popcast. We went 5 hours, and next week is super busy because we have a Raw Popcast on Monday, the Wednesday Popcast on Wednesday, we have Ring of Honor pay-per-view on Friday, NXT TakeOver on Saturday, and also SummerSlam on Sunday, Raw on Monday. And if we get an announcement, and that's the end of it, then there's a possibility that the Elite will be joining you on Tuesday. Yeah, not Saturday. It's because of NXT. Blame Wrestling. Sorry about that. I'm trying to combine everything so everybody can be happy this announcement season. And don't worry, at the end of the month, we're going to start into award season. So our first Oscar predictions are coming up. So yeah, this year's going by super fast. And I love every second of it, because in 34 days, I will get to see this event with my own 2 eyes, and I'm very excited about that. Now, I wanted to find this information here. Yeah, because, okay, perfect. So, the first thing, well, a good friend of mine, close friend of mine, Mockingjay, who you know from the Orlando United Forums, she sent me a message. And she said her friend lives in Tampa, and she showed me an image, and the image said the words, Tomb of the Ancients. And I was wondering, wait a minute, we just figured out what Cobweb's name is, just without even knowing. Like, unbeknownst to myself at the time, I was looking at the official Universal Orlando annual Passholders mailer and the promotion for the annual Passholder event nights. And that promotion revealed the name for Cobweb as Tomb of the Ancients. So it was out in the open. So you might as well get it out in the public eye. So I'm going to read a little bit from the description from Anthony, and I'm going to read a little bit from some more pertinent information that we've gotten via Charles Gray. And Charles Gray, of course, is in charge of houses, according to this wonderful blog here. Like I said, blog and description bar. Tomb of the Ancients is being taken to the next level. It's very claustrophobic. We've seen this in the very early scenic pictures, the behind-the-scenes pictures that Mike posted on Twitter. And it's going to have tight corridors and very cool scenic and decor. Here's the fun thing about this. Now, everybody was raving when they first went through the original An American Werewolf in London in 2013. And when they went through that house, they noticed something. When we were in the tube, we had a roof over our head. And that's something that, until that time, I don't believe had been done at the event before. And now, apparently, via things that I've heard from different people, it sounds like Universal had to get some express permission in order to do this house the way they want to make it the claustrophobic feel that they really want out of this house. Now, the blog states that everyone in A&D are history buffs. Roanoke pretty much proves that. A lot of the history houses we've seen in the past. From South American, Asian, and Egyptian cultures, they created a world mixing a lot of different cultural mythologies. Now, there's a creature in this house that is called the Amut, and it is the face of a crocodile with the paws and mane of a lion. Sounds very intriguing. It's Egyptian themed. There might as well be like a pharaoh running around, very... Obviously, you're going to be looking into like the tight corridors, and there's artifacts, and who knows, maybe there'll be some various things running after you. Obviously, you're going to be chased through this maze. And the fun thing about this was, via the HHN Orlando Snapchat, we got a little sneak peek of what we are to expect in this. Obviously, we had like a POV shot of a gentleman who looked familiar, but I couldn't place where I've seen him before. Some say he may be a local radio personality in Orlando. That's speculation. But I don't know, because I really didn't look deep into it, but that's some things you hear every once in a while. At any rate, he was walking through the house, POV style, and he was walking past very tight corridors, and we noticed that he was walking through vines. There's like a jungle theme to it. Obviously, walk through the jungle to get to this temple, whatever it ends up being. I'm really excited for this house. Something that everybody wants to see, and it's clear A&D are making Cobweb their baby this year. Tomb of the Ancients is going to be a stellar original house, and it looks to be located in Sprung Tent 1, which is where the Purge was last year, and I'm looking forward to seeing it for my own two eyes. Like I said, 34 days. So, I'm not a fan of history houses, but looking through the past, like when I went through Roanoke Cannibal Colony, it was interesting that a lot of people took it as a dark comedy house. It really wasn't. We just took the meat thing way too far. It was fun. We all had great times with it, and I'm assured that one year there will be a Roanoke scare zone. And I hope that that does happen. But until then, obviously these history houses will continue. And a lot of people are wondering if this is going to be a potential of something we could have seen several years back of El Chupacabra, but we don't know at this point what's going to be chasing us through Tomb of the Ancients. I guess we're just going to have to wait several days, several weeks to find out. Like, my God, it's crazy. It's August 11th. It's crazy. The event begins in almost a month from today. It's insane. I just can't believe it's here so quickly. A month from Sunday, so yeah, I'm very excited about that. So, that's something that looks really cool. I know a lot of people are really anticipating, and I think it's going to be a really stellar house. Definitely one of my major reasons to be in the back of the park for the aforementioned annual Passholder event night, which I'll get into in a little bit. The next one moves on to a soundstage house, and my god, this is something I've been hearing about for a long time. This is something from Halloween Horror Nights past, and that's the reason why Mike Aiello decided he wanted to call this the requel. You know what requel means? It's pretty much right there in front of your face. It's reboot/sequel. So it makes sense it would be that. So this is Ghost Town, the Curse of Lightning Gulch. Now, Ghost Town came into the event in 2004, and this was a house I know a lot of people really enjoyed. And I'll tell you right now, personally, when I heard about this house potentially coming to the event, I was sold. I was sold right away. I do not recall ever seeing images or video of this house in the past. And I've always wanted like an old West house because I've seen all the wonderful things that they've done at Knott's. And I'll say right now, before I go any further, based on the names, the concepts this year, the original content feels very Knott's. Very much like Knott's would throw out. And that's a great thing, honestly, because we need a little bit of that here on the East Coast. We really do. Especially because I need to be tied over until Tyler and myself can go out for the anniversary of Knott's in a few years. So, until then, obviously I would have to be watching videos and living vicariously through them, but I think this is very close to what you're going to see in Knott's, and what you have seen the previous year with Knott's. Now, it's called the Curse of Lightning Gulch for a reason. It's a kind of place that Charles Gray would play in if he was a little kid, or back when he was a little kid. It's authentic. From the storefronts to the piano in the bar, everything has a really unique, rustic, Western look. Now, the second I saw these pictures, I knew, without being told anything, that this was going to be in a soundstage, and it very much deserves to be. And my prediction is going to be in Soundstage 24, sharing with The Walking Dead, which means it's going to join the wondrous list of houses in the cluster that is the front of the park. Now, that being said, I saw the Lightning Gulch logo and the sign kind of off its hinges. I thought that was really cool. I think we may be looking at somewhat of our facade. And outside, we saw a good old-fashioned gallows with the static bodies hanging from them. Just like with Tomb of the Ancients, I thought I saw a little bit of Roanoke bodies they've used before The Walking Dead in the past, just like the static bodies, that dead bodies that they've used. I can see that again in Ghost Town. So, another thing about this is there's like an Undertaker's domain with coffins, and it kind of reminds me of The Walking Dead in 2014, the room where you basically got the ode to the icons of Horror Nights past. If basically you blink, you miss it, and it's something that was best understood when you were taking the Unmasking the Horror tours, which again, we will be on September 16th, and I'm super excited for that. 17th, sorry. So, September 17th, we'll be doing Unmasking the Horror, Tyler and myself. Hopefully, Mockingjay will be joining us as well, so fingers crossed that ends up working out. Because it's always good to have great friends with us when we are doing Unmasking the Horror. And, of course, our tour guide will be David, because that's how we do here on the Popcast Network. Now, another thing, you saw a wagon with the casket in the back, felt very caretaker-ish. I thought that works really well. And there was a picture. It wasn't an actual photo, it was concept art for like a dilapidated jail cell. Wow, that is so hard to say. Jail cell. So yeah, jail cell. So yeah, a dilapidated jail cell. It's very interesting to try to say that, especially when you're not paying attention. Now, yeah, this right now is one of my easily most anticipated houses of the year. The reason why certain houses are higher than this are basically because I'm really super excited and really confident that Universal is going to pull off some magic here, if you will. But we'll get to that in a little bit. I think this house looks awesome. And there were rumors that this house was also potentially going to go in Men in Black. But that did not end up coming to fruition. The actual last house I'm going to be talking about is what ended up in Men in Black, but that's not officially confirmed yet. That's just based on what we're hearing right now. And like I said, this is going in a soundstage. I thought that with the Men in Black location being so close to Bill and Ted, I thought it makes perfect sense. You'd have to have a very loud house to block out the sound of Bill and Ted. I don't want to be walking through a house and quoting the show, because it's fun to do that, but it's going to take me out of the moment, and I don't want that to happen. And I think with this house being in a soundstage, very broad-based, very scenic. It's going to be awesome. I'm very much looking forward to it. I don't know what kind of effects they're going to use here. I'm going to guess not just practical effects. I think there's going to be a lot of very different things in this house, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this happens. And I'll be honest, when it comes down to it, in the front of the park, other than The Exorcist, this is the house that I'm really looking forward to. The Exorcist is always going to be something that, ever since I first heard about the rumored lineup, I thought that that was going to be the house I would flock to. And sure enough, as every year, there's originals that are higher than most people have them, and there's IPs that are lower than most people have them. So, yeah, that's one of those cases. But yeah, I really am excited about this house. Really, really excited for this house. But if you want to know the house that I'm excited about more than anything, and I know a lot of people would disagree based upon now what we have in Men in Black. And what we're worried about with Men in Black. With the tent, obviously, like, will it be soundproof? Highly doubt that. Will it be able to withstand the elements? Gosh, I hope so. Because if it doesn't, then we're going to have an issue with our icon house being not only in the back of the park, but also being closed due to the fact that it's flooded. Literally flooded. Not with people, with water. And that's something I do not want to happen. I'm very curious what we're going to do with the queue line. We've always talked about this in the Popcast. We think it may end up being that small area between Fear Factor Live and the entrance to London. I think that little area, you go back that way, and then you walk back towards Men in Black, and that's how you end up in the house. That's what I'm thinking. But yes, this is the location for our 3D House of the Year, and we've all been told that there would be a 3D house this year, and this house, a lot of people were thinking was going to be located in Shrek. Yeah, the second theater for Shrek, but unfortunately it did not happen that way. And it would have made sense. You have to do that, and then you have our scare zone right outside. It would have been perfect, great, grand, wonderful. Everything would have been great. Everything would have been copacetic. But unfortunately, they did not go that route, and they're literally spreading her around the park. So I will get to that momentarily. But yes, this house is called Lunatics Playground 3D. You won't stand a chance. Now, this is the favorite story of the original properties, courtesy of Charles Gray, and that's my personal favorite story. You go from the real world to the 3D theater of the mind. They are using that term, and I love every second of it. You are sitting the stage from the facade, starting at where the Carnage Returns ended to where her story picks up here. So what I'm thinking here, I'm thinking we see a facade that was very much reminiscent to the stage show of 25. I'm thinking we're going to see the Wheel of Chance with a dead Amanda, like, laying on it. I mean, you could do either, you could have that as a jump scare. I'm doubting you can, because Amanda is super dead after last year. And I think that that would make sense. You walk past, and then you end up in a maybe potential police department where you walk through, you see where Chance is being held. Like, you get a little shot like an evidence locker or an evidence room where you see Jack in the Box sitting on top of the shelf, like a little Easter egg. We transition to like a padded cell, and then once we go there and we see Chance again, you're gonna go to see what she sees in her head. All the crazy, wild stuff, like John Malkovich style. What's going on in her mind is going to go through this maze, and it's going to be in 3D. I'm very much looking forward to it. The change from stone, like a stone cold version of reality, to the crazy whimsical things that are going on in Chance's demented mind, I think it is just recipe for absolute awesomeness, and I'm very much looking forward to this. It is my most anticipated house of this year without giving you the rest of my lineup. I know that's not the popular opinion, it's just my opinion. So, another thing, they're telling the story of Chance. Everything in her mind is happening in the real world, but we're seeing it through her eyes. So what you're seeing in the real world is really going on, but we're seeing it through her POV, and I think that's something that's very intriguing to me. Chance and her band of misfits, using that term, so we're using hashtag Chance's Misfits, when there is a possibility down the line that Chance takes over the Twitter just like Jack did last year. I would not be shocked if that ends up happening at this point, especially with Chance being the icon. Apparently her and her misfits chop people up and they tie them back together like marionette puppets, and then they work them. Obviously we saw there is a picture of like a small puppet stage, which gives me flashbacks to Penn and Teller, which obviously makes me happy, and also to Dollhouse of the Damned. So I think that that's something I can see them doing with a live character being like used like a puppet made out of literal dull parts. So I think that's something that would be really interesting. We see that reality, but we're also going to see what's going on, like really going on. So we're going to see a little bit of everything, and it's going to go a contrast from going from the dark, desolate tones we have, like some grays and like off-whites, which is pretty much gray, just like the dark colors of what's going on with Chance being stuck in this padded cell, probably in a straitjacket, guaranteed she's in a straitjacket, even though the image basically showed that she's broken free, so she is very strong. Very unassumingly strong, but still, I think we're going to see a lot of really crazy things in this house, and a lot of nods to 3D houses from the past. I did state when I saw the original concept art for this, it looked a lot like Asylum in Wonderland, and it really fit the aesthetic that that's where it was going to go in Shrek, but I understand that there is a good chance they're going to go the other route, and I think that this location should work as long as they have prepared sufficiently enough for all the elements and the completely wacky Orlando weather that is the issue every year at Halloween Horror Nights. And it was the issue of my first year in 22. And on that point, I will never ever wear denim at the event, and I will never ever be without rain protection. I have an umbrella, I have multiple ponchos, I'm always prepared for the elements. The only thing that gets ruined are a pair of shoes every year. Yeah, that's what happens when you have constant rain for 3 weeks, you ruin your shoes. But yeah, super excited about this. And it's also going to bleed into her scare zone, which is not around her. It sounds like her scare zone is going to be in another location, but we'll get to that momentarily. And that's what brings us to the scare zones. And first we're going to talk about where I believe will be Central Park scare zone, and that is Banshee's Lair. Now, Banshee's Lair joins the myriad of scare zones in Central Park that, as my good friend Charles Bremer would say, is basically our Halloween, our traditional Halloween scare zones of the year. And it's a very interesting scare zone. I'm looking forward to seeing what they have. There's going to be evil spirits, kind of like Evil's Roots. Like, this is basically, I would say, the predecessor to Evil's Roots, if I had to guess. And there's going to be horrific creatures of the ancient world. There's going to be barriers of vines, so maybe a little bit of evil taking root. I think that makes sense. And there's going to be like a corrupted grave site. It's going to have a Celtic influence, too, and basically it was said by the person that is behind the streets this year, and his name is Blake Broswell. He basically said that it's also going to have a Halloween feel to it. So yeah, it's not just Charles saying that. Blake said it himself. So yeah, it's very interesting. The next one we go into is going to be the location that I think is going to be in San Francisco, because it makes sense, because the name Wharf's right in the title, and has been rumored by a few people to be in Sting Alley, but I don't think Sting Alley's big enough, and I think the aesthetic of two scare zones that don't really fit when it comes to theming together make no sense. So I'm going to say right now, unless it is proven incorrect, and we don't know for sure anything yet, I think this is going to be in San Francisco, and that is Dead Man's Wharf. Now, this is what I believe is going to take from John Carpenter's The Fog. It basically says so in the actual wording here. There's a fishing vessel named Annabelle Lee, nice Poe reference, I appreciate that, returning to the harbor, and it was lost forever. The wharf was left empty, uninhabited, because it was a memorial to her. Now, when the fog rolls in, long-lost fisherman spirits come in to punish the town that left them. I think this is awesome. There's going to be a ginormous haunted ship facade that I think we may have to have a lot of team members and various people watching it to make sure people don't climb on it like they did with the various stages that I think potentially could return this year, but we'll get to that momentarily. This is a scare zone that I'm looking forward to. I heard a lot about this, and this is something that I really want to see. I really want to see them execute this. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a soundtrack this actual area has. It's going to be like mood sounds, like sounds of water and like ocean. I mean, are they going to do that? Are they going to have soundtrack to the fog? We're going to hear fog horns. There's going to be a lot of fog in this maze, and the scare zone, obviously. It's going to feel like a maze because it's basically going to be nothing but fog, so you're going to have to navigate your way through it like a maze. There you go. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. The other one is Vamp 1955. This looks like it's going to end up in Hollywood. This is your Hollywood High School 1955 homecoming parade, complete with parade floats. So we're going to see greasers, 1950s vampires. Yeah, 50s vampires. Dr. Jimmy really does know what he's talking about sometimes. It just may take a couple years. Hey, the guy knows a lot. That's just how it works. Shout out to Doc. So this is really interesting. I like the campiness of this. I think this is going to work really well, and I think this is going to be an awesome scare zone, and I think they're finally utilizing Mel's Die into the fullest of its capabilities. Given the fact that this is going to feel like a 50s mentality in this, I think that we're going to have the stages return from the previous years. Kind of a photo op scare zone, but not completely quite. I mean, maybe, potentially. I mean, not to the extent of the previous years, but I think they're going to be like parade floats. That's what's going to be out. That's going to be your set pieces. I think it's going to be decorated for like a homecoming parade. It's basically going to be a stationary parade. And there's going to be 50s music blaring. It's going to be awesome. There's probably going to be like vampire Bobby Sockers. I think that's going to be cool. We're going to see like a vampire Elvis maybe. Like young, like normal, not old Elvis, young Elvis. Like, I think that that's a possibility. It's going to be very 50s style. I really think it's going to be great to see the fangs and the poodle skirts at the same time. Should be really fun. Who knows, there might end up being like 50s style dancing and maybe doing the twist, kind of like a small show that's not mentioned or not talked about. Just something that they do just for fun in the scare zone itself. I think it'd be cool, and it's something I'm really looking forward to. Not as much, of course, as I'm looking forward to the next scare zone. Looks like it's going to end up in Production Central, and that is a Chance in Hell. This looks like this is going to be Chance's scare zone, and it is going to be Chance pretty much as your Barker, like I had mentioned before, but this time it's in a different location. I think she's going to have a high platform or even a throne where she is standing or sitting on it, and she is yelling down at the commoners on the ground, and also yelling at her minions to attack the people, kind of like what we've seen with the Polite Stranger in the past. With the Purge. I think that this is also going to be a potential nod to like Chucky's Insult Emporium, where Chance is not only going to yell at people, she's going to insult people. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a nice atmosphere, and apparently she is auditioning people to join her. And they're going to be like cellmates, so I'm going to guess this may be a somewhat connection to Shady Brook, potentially, which I think that may end up coming into play with her house as well. Obviously, we talked about the fact that Jack the Clown and Chance are basically Universal's answer to the Joker and Harley Quinn. So if you use that mentality, it would make sense that at one point Chance was normal, if you will, and something happened, and who knows, maybe she's under the influence of Mr. J, and I don't mean Joker, Mr. Jack in this case. So yeah, it makes sense that it'd be Shady Brook. They do mention the word cellmates, so it does make sense that they would go in the Shady Brook route, which a lot of people were speculating was going to happen. So basically, what they're doing in this is they are worshiping her, literally worshiping her. So like I said, the throne makes perfect sense. And when they worship her, they are finding various objects to look like Chance. This sounds awesome. This sounds like your mini show, and this sounds like something that I am looking forward to seeing with my own two eyes. Final would be where I think is going to end up being New York, because New York is all about chaos and craziness, and New York has had, obviously, The Purge and Psychoscarapy Unleashed, and now it's home to, presumably, Survive or Die, and it sounds very interesting. And my good friend, good member of this community, Chris, HHN Legacy, put it best when he said this is basically The Purge meets Saws and Steam. It makes perfect sense. Obviously, the wording is that a global catastrophe has ruined Earth's atmosphere. There's a group of survivors securing a machine, providing clean air, so everybody's fighting for air, and the other groups are on the hunt to get the machine and getting new members to help them. And you can join them, or you can feed their starving ranks. Should be really interesting to see how this lines up. This is actually one of the only things we don't really know anything about. That's all we know about this. There is no bits and pieces about it. There's no pictures of it. This is just the one blog post, and that's it. That's all we know. We didn't have anything. Blake said nothing at all about Survive or Die, so we just have to use our own thoughts here. I think it's going to be crazy. It's going to be like a dystopian society gone wrong. I think that it's going to be very interesting. Should be really fun. It's going to feel like, I'm going to guess the mentality is going to feel like it's the end of the world because of like global warming or pollution. I mean, probably like some very fanatical like EPA people. I think that makes sense. And I think it should be really interesting. Maybe somebody will like, I don't know if they want to bring in trees. I think that would be really cool. You could put a tree in there, and then someone could chain themselves to a tree, and because they won't move, somebody just chainsaws them in half. I think that would be awesome. Be a great visual. That is your Scare Zone lineup as well. The last thing I want to mention is the fact that we have a second show. Yeah, we have a second show this year. Now, there's been a lot of speculation. Started out by getting Owen's hopes uber high, and that is the fact that everybody was saying that it was lining up slowly but surely that Penn and Teller would return to the event. And a lot of people were saying it would be a show. Proven incorrect. Somebody decided they wanted to drop the knowledge the Jabberwockies were coming to Orlando this year, and they were going to go both coasts. Nope, thankfully that didn't happen. But we did get something from Hollywood last year, and that is Academy of Villains. An Academy of Villains, I have their bio here. They started in 2009, and they're a theatrical dance company known for storytelling, incredibly intense choreography, and their jaw-dropping stunts. Now, I watched this, a little video that someone posted on YouTube, last year at Universal Studios Hollywood's event with the after party. And the after party was November 6th and 7th, and they were very confined. Now, they're going to be using the giant stage from The Carnage Returns, so I don't think they're going to be so confined. And I'm wondering if they're going to change the way the barricades are lined up. I don't think there's a way to do it, so they can actually have the members of Academy of Villains not only dance on the stage, but also on the ground as well. Because if not, it's going to be a cluster of, like, catastrophic purposes. Long day. So, there's going to be magic, so technically I'm getting a magic show, but it's not quite all magic, obviously, it's just kind of there. Sounds really interesting. They are a horror-themed troupe. They're come out of California. They were featured in Season 7 of America's Got Talent, didn't get eliminated to the semifinals. So, yeah, this is something that is really interesting, and yeah, we will check it out on Employee Preview and see what it looks like. So, kudos to bringing some new blood to the event. And obviously the other show, the 25th anniversary of Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. Super excited for Bill and Ted to return, and super excited to be able to be there for its 25th show year. I'm very much excited for it. Now, obviously, it's a little bittersweet given the fact that Jason Ryan Perry hung up his wig and he is no longer playing Ted. But Bill's still there, still rocking it out. Shout out, PJ. And I'm telling you right now that I think the show's going to be awesome. It's going to be nods to the original Bill and Ted. Me and Will were talking about maybe bringing back the Wild West set. Obviously, we're going to see San Dimas High School. We're going to see Dr. Evil. I think the phone booth obviously has to return. Rufus could be there. Abraham Lincoln. Some nods to the movie. I think that that's going to be the case, and I know a lot of people are thinking Donald Trump's going to be the villain. I believe Cameron said that Donald Trump getting caught with a Pokeball, I think, would be a good fitting end to the show, and maybe doing a nice musical tribute at the very end. Musical tribute, obviously, to Prince, David Bowie, and Lemmy from Motorhead. So, yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And obviously the music that we know and love from this year. A lot of great things. I'm looking forward to Bill and Ted this year. It should be really awesome. I'm super excited for it. Really glad to know that I'm going to be there for preview night, opening night, and closing night for Bill and Ted, and a lot of points in between. I went 25 times last year. I'm breaking that record this year. Mark my words. And another little tidbit of information, Mike threw out the fact roaming hordes are returning. So we don't know anything about what they're going to be. There's a lot of thoughts out there. The Clown Saw drill team will return because they were uber successful last year. And I think there's a really good chance that they're going to be added again. Makes perfect sense. And who knows? The event is announced, all the original content. There was something last year in the years previous that... who knows if we're going to get anything legendary this year. I guess we're just going to have to wait a while to find out. So, yeah, that's my personal thoughts on the original content. Really excited about it. I'll give my absolute thoughts this Saturday, 9 p.m., as the Elite of the Popcast Network presents our 7th Halloween Horror Nights 26 Popcast. All of the members of the Elite will be there, as well as a couple special guests joining us with our extremely lively and awesome live chat room. So check that out here on this network at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this Saturday night to get more information about what we all think about the originals coming back to Halloween Horror Nights 26. And the last bit of information is simply this. The lineup, it's not complete. There's one more house left to go. And it's simply just horrific. Words in the actual blog itself. So grab your tickets, sign up for your tours, get your hotels booked while you still can, and start the countdown. Because we are 36 days from opening night. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And last but certainly not least, before we take it home here, I do want to talk about the aforementioned annual Passholder event nights. It's something I've been doing since 2012, my first year, and I don't know if it happened previously before that, and I can't really get a confirmation if it did or not. So the mailer itself basically gives you early access on September 16th and 17th, the 23rd and the 24th, the first 2 Fridays and Saturdays of the event, and you get access to Tomb of the Ancients, and Halloween Hell Comes to Haddonfield at 5:30, and then you get into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at 5:45. You also get access to the first showing of Bill and Ted. Now, basically, they're going to give you a wristband, and that's going to give you all access to all of these things. There's going to be special merch that they're going to sell. They're going to sell food and drink, obviously. And it's a really awesome time. There's 2 ways to get in. First off, one way I recommend, one way I don't recommend. Usually, there is, well, normally, always, there is a ginormous white tent that is out there in front of the arches. And that's where you sign up. But if you go over to Battery Park, if you're already in the park, which I recommend being in the park, because you got to be in the park by 5 o'clock to get and stay and scream anyway, I would state that you have this location where you're already in the park. You don't have to go through the special entrance. You don't have to go through any bag check or anything. You just go right in. And basically, you're already there. You walk through, and they take you to Kid Zone, and they line you up so you can go through Tomb of the Ancients at 5:30, Halloween at 5:30, and then a little bit later, right after you're done with both of those houses, you can head towards Texas. Hit Bill and Ted, and you can hit Lunatics Playground 3D, and then head towards the front of the park. The only thing I'm worried about here is this year, especially when we get to the front of the park with the Mega House and The Walking Dead and Ghost Town and The Exorcist and even to a lesser extent Krampus, all in the same general area. I'm worried by the time the annual Passholder event nights are done, the front lines are going to be horrendous. Guess this may be a year for Express, even though we're not using it. I guess we'll see how the crowd flows on preview night, which isn't really an indicator, and opening night, which will be an indicator, so we'll figure that out, unless something else is going on opening night. Fingers crossed that happens. So yeah, that's what we've got for this video. That is my thoughts and everything on the original content coming to the event this year. And as always, you can follow Halloween Horror Nights Orlando on Twitter at Horror Nights ORL, as well as their new Snapchat, which they started in 2014. It's HHN Orlando. Follow the Popcast Network on Twitter at Popcast Network. Follow me on Twitter at Suro and Disney. Check out our merchandise at Zazzle at Popcast Network and our Facebook fan page at Popcast Network. And if you haven't yet, go back and check out the previous Popcasts we've done for the event this year. We've done one for every single announcement, including a special one we did recently, which was just talking about all 4 events. We talked about Orlando, Hollywood, Japan, and Singapore. That's on here. So there'll be 8 on there officially after Saturday night, and you can find us on iTunes, search Popcast Network, one word. Don't know exactly how to switch that, so yeah, it's going to probably end up like that. Check out some great Halloween Horror Nights forums at Horror Night Nightmares and Orlando United. Some great Halloween Horror Nights related content websites, including HomeMadeHaunt.net, FirstClassHorror.com, HHNCrypt.com, HHNLegacy.com, HHNYearbook.com, ThrillSeekerNetwork.com, HHNUnofficial.com, and great podcast, the Scare Zone Podcast, and Frequent Fear Podcast, the Dead Man's Digest, and our good friends Matt and Quint from NeoZaz. So check those out. Some awesome, great links here in the bottom to all of the members of the Popcast Network Elite. And their links, their Twitters, their YouTube channels are in the description bar, as well as some great Horror Nights updaters and some great other YouTubers that have some awesome Horror Nights content. So That being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. Hope to see you guys on Saturday night at 9 p.m. when we talk all things Halloween Horror Nights 26 and the original content. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, that 9th house or something else may drop before then, and we'll have even more to talk about. I guess you're just going to have to wait and see. I know, there's always a chance. So thank you guys and girls out there for watching, and until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all I gotta say about that.